1.3 here. This is where we started, where we finished off last time. And we talked about distance and midpoints. We talked about length. Distance is also called length. And it's always represented by a positive number. We said to find distance between 2 points, we used the distance formula. We did that. Then through, we said what the distance formula was. We used it. We used it a couple more times. Then we started talking about this idea of a midpoint. The idea of a midpoint and how it makes two congruent segments. It cuts it in half. This is middle, point, midpoint. What? No way, yeah. Okay. Then we found, given that m was a midpoint, we found the length of the m by setting two things equal to each other. We said if they're congruent, they're equal in length, so we can set them equal. We said alarms and bells and whistles should be going off our head when we hear congruent, saying, oh, we should set them equal. Okay. So we went through a segment bisector. Excuse me, which is just a point, ray, line, on a segment plane that intersects the segment at its midpoint. So it still cuts it in half. It's a little broader. Then we worked on identifying the segment bisectors and then solving, okay? And we did that with 12, and then on 13 we just identified it and we said, oh, how would we solve this? Well, we'd set those two equal to each other since it's a midpoint, and then we would solve for x, plug it back in, do that kind of stuff, okay? That's where we left off on. And we got down to here where we just briefly went over the midpoint formula, but we hadn't quite used it yet, correct? Okay, we hadn't quite used it yet. So to recap where we are, if you went to section 1.3 in your notes, you flip the page over. We just finished the very bottom of this page, okay? So we're going to start on this top of this page here in a second. We want to talk over the bottom of this page one more time here. So the midpoint formula. To find the midpoint, we're going to call the midpoint m here. M just for midpoint, okay? It's the x coordinate, because we write it as a point, x comma y, we said. The x coordinate is the averages of x1 and x2. So those are just the x's for the endpoints. So for this case, this was like x1 and this was x2, okay? That's kind of hard to read, but x1 and x2, okay? So it's the averages of those. Average means you add things up and you divide by however many things you added. So in this case, you added two things up, the two x's, and you divide by 2, because we added two different things up. And that'll give us the x of the midpoint in our x comma y. Then we said, okay, the y's, y1 and y2, you take the averages of those, you add those two together and divide by 2, because we added two things together, and you get the y coordinate. That's how we find it. Because when you find the average, you really kind of find the middle value. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and practice here with this problem, okay? So if we're finding the coordinates of the midpoint on the next page here, top left of this next page, example 13, find the coordinates of the midpoint. We're given two endpoints. We're given r is 1, negative 3, and we're given s is 4, 2. We're trying to find the midpoint m. It's in the middle there, we can see. We're trying to figure out where that is. So what we do, according to our formula, we say that for the x coordinate, okay, so I'm going to call x sub m for x sub midpoint, just kind of how we have like x sub 1, x sub 2. I'm going to call x sub m is equal to x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2. That's really the same thing our midpoint formula just said. I just broke it down into the x coordinate only. Then we also have our y coordinate. I'm going to do that in a slightly different color, and we'll see why in a minute. I'll call it y sub m is going to be equal to y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. And that'll just give us the y of the midpoint and the x of the midpoint if we go through and do these. Now notice I kept all my y's together, and I kept all my x's together. Now, here, if we're adding two numbers together, does it matter the order we add two numbers? No. If you have 3 apples and you get 2 more, how many apples do you have? 5. If you have 2 apples and you get 3 more, we go the other way. Do you still have 5 apples? Yeah, you still have 5 apples. Okay? How do you like them apples? Ja, 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 ja. Okay. So it means it doesn't really matter whether we call which one of these point 1 and point 2. It really doesn't matter. So R, you guys want to call it point 1 or point 2? Point 1, cool. Jessica decided for us. So that's x1, and now this is y1. which means that this one is by default x2 and y2. Can you guys see that green against that blue there?
No.
No, okay. Let me change it. You don't need a calculator right now.
I'm colorblind, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm blind.
Are you actually though?
No.
That's what I thought, because you didn't tell me all last year.
I'm blind.
Hi, blind. I'm Mr. Carlson, nice to meet you. Do you have glasses here?
Yeah, but I don't wear them.
Okay, you should probably start wearing those. That might be a good idea. You want to move up
Are
to this
you
spot for the day?
colorblind?
No, I'm not colorblind. There we
No,
go.
that was my job.
I knew that's why Grace was doing it too, so I'm actually pretty happy that you did that. I'm pretty happy that you did that. I'm Mr. Carlson. Well, I was actually pretty happy, but I'll still say nice to meet you. You got my name wrong. Okay, so what's x1? Okay, 1. We called it 1. If we said it doesn't matter, but we already titled it 1, so we'll call it 1 now. So we'll say x sub n, x to the midpoint, which we don't know yet. We don't know that yet. Is 1 plus what number?
There's
4.
no room for this.
X sub 2. There's no room. You can write it right underneath it. Over 2. What is 1 plus 4? So, well, let me back up. So we just took this formula. We just plugged in what we knew. We said we don't know the midpoint yet, x sub m for midpoint, and we don't know the y of the midpoint yet. We plugged in what we knew. We know x sub 1, so we plug that in. We know x sub 2, we plug that in, and the 2 stayed the same. So now this turns into an algebra problem that we can solve. So what is 1 plus 4? 5. So x sub m is equal to 5 over 2. Okay? What can we call 5 over 2? We call it a decimal, what can we call it? 2.5. So 2.5. So we call x sub m is equal to 2.5. Okay?
Okay, why do you keep saying sub?
Sub means below, like submarine, below the water, okay? Subterranean, below the ground. Subpar, below par, okay? So sub just means it's a little letter below it, or a little script below it, okay? It's a good question, thank you for asking that, because otherwise that would be confusing, okay? So what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to try and find the y sub m, okay? Now we found the x sub m, I want you guys to try and find the y coordinate of the midpoint, okay? No, did you already do it, or are you just looking at it more?
Yeah, I already did it.
I just thought maybe you'd really like to know. And I'll say if you do, I can pick it up on my house. I'll do it.
To mow your house, you mean to mow your lawn?
Yes. Where? At the lawn. That's probably a good way to say that. Move.
Lawn.
Yeah, lawn.
You mow the yard,
And I move.
mowing all the.
Yeah, you would not mow the
Do you
inside.
have your
That's
stuff
weird. Messy.
I've
Mow
got
the
that.
siding. Mow the siding. Yes.
Go get that.
That'd be good for it. There. And I.
You do the dance stuff, you said that.
Dance with it.
The anti-hoop or whatever that move
Does it dance with it?
I don't know, it's not like a dance, it's like a move or whatever. I don't know how to do it.
That's weird. I didn't know that. I never even seen the video. I just heard
What
that
is
song.
the low when you say?
Huh?
You hit the whoa,
Yeah.
and I oop, like that. Okay. So, y sub m equals what plus what over 2?
Why?
Negative 3 plus 2 over 2. We just plugged in what we knew. We plugged in the y1 and the y2. The y sub 1, y sub 2. And then we went through and solved. So what did we get on the top, the numerator? Negative 1 over 2. And what does that equal in a decimal? What kind of half? Negative. Negative 0.5. Okay. Now, how do we usually write coordinates? X comma y, right? So let's go ahead and write that. 2.5 comma negative 0.5. If it's better for you, do negative 0.5. Questions on that? What was that? Point M. Yeah, that would be point M. That's a good point. I should highlight that this is point M, our midpoint.
So that's
And if-
just the answer.
Yeah, because all we were doing was finding the midpoint. So we found a point. And if you guys look over here, 2.5 comma negative 5, well 0, 1, 2, 3, is that about halfway between 2 and 3? So 2.5 is reasonable. Negative 0.5, is that halfway between 0 and negative 1? Yeah, I'd say that's reasonable then. Questions on that? Okay, I want you guys to practice doing letter B. Find the midpoint of those 2 points. Okay, I want you guys to practice doing letter B with those 2 points. Once again, it does not matter which one we call point 1 and point 2. You can call them either one. Yes. The lower you get, the cringier it is, right? Yes.
The more times you do it, the cringier it is.
Okay. Or you do the second one. You get even lower on the second one. Oh.
I tried to do a depth or something vain.
What did you say?
I'm just.
Okay, stop. Please, you're making me hurt.
So I got 3 sets of 3, so I'll do 2 more sets of 3. Second exercise. It's kind of a workout with some squats. I'm just happy these beans are there. That'd have been bad. That'd have been
That would have been funny.
It might be.
Okay, what does the N mean though?
At midpoint.
Like
Yeah,
after the thing though, like after the YN.
It's just saying the y of the midpoint. Just like how we have like y1, y2. That's just saying the first y and the second y. So a y is an m, it's just saying the y of the midpoint. Does this make sense? Points are what lines are. I'm guessing that's kind of.
Right now, you're raising your hand.
Hey, where do you move from? Where?
No, we don't mess with my
I hope
cousins.
you choke me.
Oh no, it's anywhere. Oh yeah, that's Florida too.
I
Florida's
apologize.
more windy out there, right?
Where are we at?
Mr. Carlson, can you please come over here? Yeah.
Why didn't you take me with you?
I thought it was lunchtime. I'm somebody sitting here, you're gonna have to sit. Are we not supposed to go to lunch? No.
Sorry, no one's ever here.
Why?
You're the only person that like.
Jillian,
Well, I enjoyed myself, man.
Jillian went to lunch.
So.
Yes, ma'am.
Totally worth it. I'd go again.
So do we go, what's 5 minus 3? Oh, we get time to do the board stuff. And then which number is bigger?
But also, we have like 30 more minutes left in this class. So we have to do one.
Positive 2 can't be over 2. That makes sense.
Huh?
Yeah.
2 divided by 6.
Try out your mom's table.
I was suggesting. I have no clue.
What?
Okay, hey guys, we're gonna talk about this one up here. We're gonna talk about this one up here, guys. Voices back off, voices back off, voices back off. Voices back off. Keep your hands to yourself. Thank you. Okay? So, we're saying for the midpoint, remember, x sub m, the midpoint coordinate for x, the x of the midpoint, would be equal to x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2. And for the y's, it would be the same thing. Y sub m is equal to y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2, okay? Now, doesn't matter which one we call x1 or x2. No, as long as they're x's, that's what matters, okay? So could we do 6 plus 10 or 10 plus 6? Sure, either way it's the same thing. We just take this and we plug in what we know. Let's say for now we'll call this x sub 1, this y sub 1, this x sub 2, y sub 2. If you did it reverse, it's fine. You still have the right answer if you did the math correctly. So we'll plug this in. 6 plus 10 over 2. What is 6 plus 10, guys? 16. What's 16 divided by 2? 8.
Got it, John.
Okay, so on the y sub m is going to equal what plus what? -3 plus 5. Okay, hey, here, whenever we're adding, and that's over 2 by the way, whenever we're adding numbers with different signs, this one's negative, this one's positive, we turn it into subtraction. What's 5 minus 3? 2. Which number is bigger, the 5 or the 3? The 5, so it stays positive like the 5 is. Y sub m is equal to 2 over 2. What is 2 divided by 2? 1. So how would we write our answer as an ordered pair? What comma what? A comma 1. Very good.
Didn't put M.
What now?
I said it before you wrote
You
it.
said it as I was writing it.
I said it before you wrote it.
Bet. We can go back and check the video later.
Yeah, we'll see who's right.
Yeah, we'll see that on right.
Okay.
Okay. I want you guys to go ahead and try letter C now. Right?
Hi, Ray. I'm
Hey.
Grace Vandenberg.
Nice to meet you, Grace Vandenberg. Mr. Cross, nice to meet you. Said nice to meet you already. Okay. Hey, when you're done with letter C, I want you guys to raise your hand, okay? And keep that up until it's been checked, okay? Raise your hand and keep that up until it's been checked, okay? You want to help check? Sure. So, okay. And or if you have questions, I want you to also raise your hand.
No.
That's my name on it. I'm number 12. No, they're just.
I'm already done the same thing with Y. Checks with Y. I'm already doing it with that.
Are you done?
Yes, I'm just checking. That makes sense. Yes. Yeah. Probably. Relatively, yes.
I like the better when there's 2 inches, depending on which floor you're on. Would you kind of
I think it's just gonna be take some.
Oh!
I think it's gonna
steam lunch is basically
I am starving every single day.
I starve
starving every single day.
I'm Braden.
I'm Mr. Cost, nice to meet you.
Like you're bad.
He's not gonna take
I'm not gonna
it.
And I can take your hand, Mr. Cost.
How many is that? Like 7 to 1?
No, Mr. Cost.
We're team together, okay? So
Me and him are even right now.
And they
both
come
of you
up
is
with
like
the- they come up to Nebraska for the corn fed boy.
Well, you can be even with me.
Ooh, you better say, Grace Vandenberg, my favorite. You better say that.
Oh, you get salty.
She looks, actually, she looks cute.
I have one more point.
Can I use the bathroom, please?
I don't know, can you?
You know it hurts,
Go
but
play
it's true. Alright, it's fun.
Great. I have one more.
My dad has more friends than my grandpa.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, my dad plays Fortnite all the time. It's so embarrassing. Like you don't even know.
Kale, you wanna come here and do this one?
I mean, my dad's lit, but like his leg hurts.
Oh, yeah? Can I get a volunteer to come and do this one?
Me.
Okay, Grace, go ahead.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, there is.
Can I pick a color you love, Sunshine?
Sure.
What color is that color?
You know.
Yeah, I feel some. What color is that?
It's not. What? It's not.
Okay, that's a pretty color, I guess.
It's not fun.
Okay.
Not loud.
First you do X, M. Actually, no. First you label your points. At least I do. And then that equals. Wait, really? Just keep going, Grace. 14 plus -9, and then over 2. Okay? And then you subtract 14 and 9 because 9 is negative, so you get 5. So xm equals 5 divided by 2, which is 2.5. So xm equals 2.5. So that's your first point. And then you do the same thing on the other side, except it's y. And then you take 7 plus 1 divided by 2. So you get 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So yn equals 4. And then you plug it into the points. So then it's 2.5 and 4. And that is m.
Good stuff. Any questions for Grace?
Oh.
Flip this on.
That was such a good toss by me.
Should have put it on his feet. He would come.
It's true.
With his feet?
Yeah.
Possibly.
I'm better with you. Anyway, props will go. Nice to meet you.
I was gonna say that.
So, any questions on this one, guys? Okay, let's move on here. Now, we're gonna kind of go backwards a little bit. Okay, we're gonna kind of shift gears. We're gonna go backwards a little bit. We're gonna be given an endpoint and a midpoint. We're told find the coordinates of the missing endpoint. Before, on the last 3 problems, we were finding the midpoint. In the last 3 problems, we were finding the midpoint. Now, we're finding the endpoint. So we're told P is the midpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and label that. P is the midpoint. I'm going to label that midpoint of segment EG. Hey, if it's called segment EG, what do you know about E and G? They are the endpoints, right? So E is one of our endpoints. And so we're looking for our missing endpoint, which is what? Point G. We're looking to figure out what point G is. We don't know that. That's what we're trying to figure it out. Okay? We're trying to figure out what point G is there. Okay? We're trying to figure out what's a real G. Okay? What's the OG? Okay? So to speak. Now, Minecraft. Okay. So, what we can do is, we have 2 ways we can solve this. We'll first walk through our first one. Okay? Which we're going to call averages. This is using the same formula we just got done using. So this is still using x sub m is equal to x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2. We're still going to use that same exact formula. Okay? We're still going to use that same exact formula. Now, instead of finding x sub m, what are we going to be finding? Where are they all going? They ran away. They don't like me. I said, Mr. Colossal, why didn't you make Nolan shower more? He smells bad.
Oh.
I can't control him. And so they left. You didn't hear them say that? They super did. Why did you hear them say that? Hey, why is it? I heard it. Did I hear it? What? Okay. So x of m is equal to x of 1 plus x of 2 over 2. This time, do we know the x of m? Do we know the x of the midpoint?
No. I mean, well, yeah.
I think so. What is the x of the midpoint? -2. We know x sub m up here. We know this is y sub m. What can we call this one? X sub 2. Okay. Well, this is y sub 2. Well, let's make this one x sub 1, and this y sub 1. Okay. So you can reverse that however you want. Okay. So what are we trying to find here? We have x and y m. We have x and 2 and y2. We're trying to find the other endpoint, which is x1, y1 as we called it. Could we have also called it x2, y2?
I guess.
Yeah, we could have called it either way. Okay, that's what like I said. So that's what we're trying to find. So just like on the last three, we started with this formula. We plugged in two things we knew, right? We plugged in two things we knew when we solved. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to plug in what we know. What is x sub m? -2. Let's plug that in. What is x sub 1? We don't know it. Let's call it x sub 1. What's x sub 2? -5. And that's still being divided by 2. So notice we still really did a very similar thing. We still just took this formula and we plugged in what we knew, right? Make sure we're writing this down with me. Okay? We took the same formula and we just plugged in what we knew. The only thing that's changed so far is instead of knowing x sub 1, we now know x sub m. So that means we're going to have to solve it a little bit differently. How would you solve this kind of algebra problem? Okay, we look at where's our variable we're trying to find. What's happening with it? Yep, it's being added with -5, and it's being divided by what? 2. Now this whole side is being divided by 2. Do you want to get rid of that denominator then? How do we get rid of that denominator, Gracie? Multiply by
5x2.
what it's being divided by. Now if we multiply this side by 2, what do we have to do to this side? Multiply by 2 as well. Let's write that in, please, and thank you. What happened? Let's write this in, please, and thank you. We're multiplying both sides by 2 to try and undo this division. Okay? Multiplying both sides by 2 to try and undo that division. Okay? So, what's 2 times -2? -4. 2 times 2 is 4. It's positive and negative, so it's negative, right, Gail? Yeah, you want to take a head up, please? Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay? What happens with this 2 and this 2? Well, to help us think of it as a fraction, we could think this as 2 over what number? 1. What happens with this 2 and this 2, Gracie?
They cross reduce.
Cross reduce. They both become what number?
I feel targeted. 1.
Yes, 1. Okay? So now, what are we left with on this right-hand side of the equation, Mason?
X sub 1 plus -5.
Very good. We're left with x sub 1 plus -5, okay? So we multiply both sides by 2, and look how much simpler this problem got now. Peyton, what would you do now to get x sub 1 by itself? Okay? So we're adding a -5. How do we get rid of -5? Add 5. Okay, it's a little bit tricky, right? We're going to add 5 to both sides. We see that plus sign, and so we think, oh, subtract. But we got to be careful. It's a -5. We need a +5 to get rid of that negativity. What's -4 plus 5, guys?
1.
1. You still have x sub 1. And what's -5 plus 5? 0. Did we figure out x sub 1? Yeah, it's 1. We can put that up here for G now. It's a real G. Walking through that again, what just happened, guys? Okay, we took the same formula we used, the same formula we've been using on the last few. And what we did was we said, okay, we're going to plug in what we know. We know the midpoint, so we know x sub m. We know one of the endpoints, so we plug in one of the endpoints. We don't know the other, so we're solving for the other. So we multiply by 2 to undo that division, and we did it to both sides to keep things fair and equal and balanced. And then from there, we just solved this one-step equation that turned into. I want you guys to try solving it for the y's, okay? Knowing that we start out with y sub m is equal to y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. I want you guys to try plugging it in and solving from there. As you have questions, or when you're done, raise your hand, please. I do it differently. So it's really the same thing. We have no doubling it. So it's exactly the same way. That makes sense? Yeah. It really ends up being the same thing.
That's a Nebraska thing.
Yep. So here.
I don't know where
we're
it
gonna go
cover
where we use
all.
Yeah, we could both plug it too. So we're gonna be here. Question.
Boom.
So let's write this y sub m. When you're done, raise your hand so we can check. I didn't know. Oh yeah? I always ran Mr. Cross with me. Shoot again. Check. Yes. I have no I didn't erase that. Okay.
Are you doing it?
I have to, I can't go back.
What?
That's the first exercise of
So you put one of the
What do you mean?
and then one option.
You gotta one up.
You know, change this is the
Wait, no, he's lying.
So do we know why is that? Think about this. Y sub m. This was x sub
Hey.
m. So let's go for y sub m. So right now.
The two is just in there.
No, you know y sub 1. So it would be 3 times y.
Get that Y by
No.
Boom. There you go. There you go. After you're done.
Yeah, to be beat, I scored you out.
No, and then I'm correct. Try
Why do you live in New York City? Why do you live in New York City?
Mister, do you come here, please?
Well, I think you dress like,
Yes.
I think you dress like you want to be city.
I have not, that's where I went through school in my second.
What do you find that? You said we're gonna try y, so I started with y sub y sub m, y sub 1, y sub 2.
Oh, wait, you're the one who's. I'm doing.
We're still in the
I'm
first
Mr. Costa.
Which is better?
Yes.
Probably everybody.
Exactly.
Soccer.
Which do I play?
Hey guys, let's get a little quieter. Let's get a little quieter. Thank you.
Pretty darn good.
No, I find it.
Five, brother. Yeah, right, yeah. I'm wearing, I'm wearing, yeah, I'm wearing black. I'm 5'5", but I'm wearing top one. I'm 5'2", so
Sure. Hey, you?
you and Augie will match.
No, the straw hat.
That's why I asked about the boots.
Well, I'm gonna move on. Oh, I don't know.
Hi,
What?
what's your name, kid? Nice to meet you, bro. My name's Trevor.
Soak in some water. There's that punk girl walking around.
We never talk. I don't know anything about you. But I just want to say hi as well.
Way easier. That's what my dad was.
Eric got one. Like he doesn't freak trombone.
That makes more sense.
Oh, we're not dating.
I'm
Hey.
Telegram saxophone is better.
So then I don't.
Yeah, it's hearing music.
I don't know. When you go down there, Jay.
I got cancer.
Do a handstand again. Biggie. Oh my god. Notorious Biggie.
But usually when we start hey, shoes already get
My,
I
I'm
don't
just
understand,
like,
like,
you know who Notorious Big is?
No.
I do.
Yes, I know who he is.
Bro,
Right on.
he's the biggest bro.
Why?
You rap, you rap bar. That's disappointing.
Can you rap? Usually if you start like too mad, so this is the middle way. Just like here. You don't know.
I don't know. It'll probably be the other one.
Okay, let me do
Last, like last, it's only practice.
You guys do last year.
On the way.
Talk about it more.
Hey, back to our seats, please. Back to our seats, please. Voices back off, please and thank you. Voices back off, please and thank you. Okay, so start off with Y sub M. You gotta plug that in. What is our Y sub M? We said it was 5. Okay, notice how much I'm labeling stuff, by the way. That's not just to be annoying. That's because it actually does help us. I firmly believe that these labels and writing these things down will help us, which is why I'm doing it. Okay, so 5 we said is Y sub M. So just like I replaced -2 for X sub M, I'm going to replace 5 down here just the same. I'm going to draw a line here just so we know that I'm working on something different. 5 is equal to, well, do we know Y sub 1? No. So we'll leave it as Y sub 1. We're trying to figure that out. Do we know Y sub 2? Yeah, we labeled that as what? 4. Marissa, put that away or I'm going to take it. Okay. And we know we're dividing by 2. So now, how do we undo the division of 2? Multiply by 2. Very good. We undo that by multiplying by 2. And do that to both sides to keep it fair and equal. What is 2 times 5? 10. Now what happens with this 2 on the bottom and this 2 over 1 over here? We can cross reduce. How many times does 2 go into 2? Once. How many times does 2 go into 2? Once. Okay? So we're left with y sub 1 plus 4. Ha ha ha, y. Okay? So now what do we do to get rid of this plus 4? Subtract 4, because now we don't have any denominators. That's awesome. What's 10 minus 4? 6. So that equals our y sub 1. Okay? So now we can write that as an ordered pair, can't we? Because we have this 1 for the x, we have the 6 for the y, so g, our missing endpoint, is 1 comma 6. So we use the same exact formula we did before, we just plug in different spots. We plug in different spots, and so it turns into an algebra problem we have to solve. Our algebra wheels kick in, and we start doing an algebra problem. Does that make sense? Okay, did we multiply by 2 just because we picked a random number here, or why did we multiply by 2? Because 2 is in the denominator to get rid of that 2, okay? We chose that number specifically because that's the number here. If that was a different number, we would have chosen whatever number it was. Okay? Okay, let me talk about the second way we can do this. I guarantee you guys are going to like this more. Okay? The second way is to take these points, and what do we think we're going to do on this graph?
Plot 'em.
Plot them. Okay? So let's go to negative 2 comma 5, and we'll label that point P, our midpoint. I'm going to do the same thing with our endpoint, go to negative 5 comma 4, and we'll call that point E. Now, which one of these is the endpoint, E or P? E. Okay, that means P is the midpoint. So that means P has to be between that and G, right? So is G going to be to the right or to the left? To the right, because P has to be in the middle. Okay? If P has to be in the middle, that means G has to be to the right. If G's over here, it won't be in the middle between them. Okay? And does G got to be up or down? Up. Why? Because it has to be, P has to be exactly between those. If it goes down, then G's not going to be, or P's not going to be between the two. So then what we say, we know we're going to go to the right and we know we're going to go up. The question is, how much? Well, Nolan, what are you thinking?
Why don't we, like, okay, this is not like exactly, but like, why does geometry have like a curve, like a curved line?
So that's actually a different type of geometry if you have curved lines. It's kind of weird. Yes?
You're gonna go up 1/6.
Okay? You're going to go up, how much you said?
1/6.
We're going to go to 1/6 because it'll end up being the same. But how do we know it's going to be that if we didn't already solve it? Okay? So we think, how far did we go over to the right? 1, 2, 3. We went to the right 3. So how much do you think we might go to the right here? 3, because it's in the middle. So we do the same thing. If it's in the middle, it's halfway between.
Bless you.
Bless you and bless the rain down and half, bless you forget. We're going to go over 3 here as well. So we know that the x-coordinate will be what? 1. Okay, so we know that G will be 1 comma something. Well, how far did we go up from E to P? 1. How far are we going to go up from P to G? 1. 1 comma 6. See how we just kind of match that?
Oh, sounds good.
Marley.
Goodness. All this slime.
This is lit. Okay? Okay. This is dumb. Okay. So I know you guys are probably liking that second option more, right? I think it's important for us to know how to do the first option. You guys are free to do the second option, okay? Now, I want you guys to try and do letter B. I want you guys to try and do letter B, okay? P is still the midpoint. P is still the midpoint. E is still the endpoint. And we're still looking to try and find point G. Yeah, you can do either option you want. You can do either of these two options you want. So you can plot them, and you can count, or you can do the averages, okay? Whichever way you want. I want you guys to work on that now, please and thank you. If you finish, raise your hand. If you have questions, raise Raise your hand. Ooh. Hey, write your answer as an ordered pair. Blank, comma, blank, okay? So write your answer as an ordered pair, blank, comma, blank, just because I'm me. Okay? Only because I'm me. So you're right.
Let's see who wants to read that enough unless we forget. Hold on. What's that?
And once you have your hand raised, once you're done or have questions, raise your hand.
Yep, stop.
So you just need to go over
Is it? What?
Oh, wait, no, we're finding it.
You good?
Don't worry about what. What's wrong with that?
What are we betting?
Okay, can you recheck it now?
Why, do you recheck?
Aha.
You're done.
Okay, so this is the end point. How far down here?
So raise your hand.
Sitting in my-
There you go. Now we can know you're waiting, right? Hey, Mackenzie.
Hey.
Damn.
So do you have like a?
I do have one actually.
Are we going up? So you got snow if I was kidding.
Yeah, literally.
I can see it.
Why, thank you.
Why, you're welcome. So I did find the watch. Oh no.
Oh.
Good luck. Live in a plot.
I wrote that wrong.
Okay. Let's bring our attention up here. Bring our attention up here. Okay, there's two ways we can do this one, right? You said there's two ways to do it. One of them would be to do the averages like we did the first time. The second one would be doing the graph, okay? We'll start with the graph and then we'll go back and do the averages. So if I graph it, 1, 2, that's right up here, that's going to be point P. Remember, point P is the midpoint. E, negative 2, 2, right up here, okay? Now, hey, remember, we have to remind ourselves which one's the midpoint, because otherwise that's when we run into trouble. So the midpoint is P. So is the other endpoint going to be to the right or to the left of P? To the right. P has to be in the middle. Okay. Now, did we go up or down from point E? No. So we're going to go up or down to the midpoint? No. Okay. So how far to the right do we go? Well, we went 3 before, so how far are we going to go this time? 3. And we don't go up or down at all because we didn't go up or down at all here. So where is point G at? 4, 2. And that's our answer, okay? Now, if we went through and we did the averages, there's nothing wrong with that one bit. I'll walk through that method as well. X sub m is equal to x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2. The x of the midpoint was 1. X sub 1 or x sub 2, whatever which one you want to call it, it doesn't really matter, is negative 2. We don't know the other one, so we'll leave it as is. I mean, we know it now, we'll pretend we don't. So you'd still have this to start with, and you'd multiply both sides by 2. Just like we did before, to get rid of this fraction that's dividing our x2. So 2 times 1 is 2. This 2 and this 2, they cross reduce since they're in the top and the bottom of multiplying fractions. Negative 2 is equal to negative 2 plus x2. Add 2 to both sides to get rid of the negative 2. 4 is equal to x sub 2. Hey, that's what we got. Do the same thing but with y's. Y sub m is equal to y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. Plug it in. Y sub m is 2. Y sub 1 is 2. We don't know y sub 2. We multiply both sides by 2 again. That's how we'll do all of these. Undo that division. Go out 2 over 1 if we'd rather. 2 times 2 is 4. Equals to 2 plus y sub 2. Subtract by 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. And so 2 equals y sub 2. And we end up with the same 4 comma 2 either way. We end up with that same exact 4 comma 2 either way. Is one way more right than the other? No, we got the same answer, okay? Whichever one you prefer is whichever one I want you to choose. Questions on that? All right. Hey, I know we had some discussion questions there, right? Right below, we had discussion question 1, 2. Go ahead and cross those out. Go ahead and cross those out. Discussion questions 1 and 2 right below this. Now, if you even go to the back, flip over the page, you have 4 more discussion questions, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Go ahead and cross those out too. Don't cross out the whole page. You'll still need what's below that, okay? So go ahead and cross out discussion questions 3, 4, 5, and 6 as well, okay? Questions on that? Okay, so now what I want you to do is, before, we didn't do the whole worksheet, did we? We did numbers 1 through 8, thank you. So we're going to go back and we're going to do questions 9 through 13, okay? So I'm going to give you guys the rest of this work time to work on that, okay? I'm going to give you guys the rest of this work time to work on that. And whatever you don't finish on that, whatever you don't finish on your worksheet is going to be homework for next Trooper Tie Tuesday. Wait, Tuesday? Why don't we have class on Monday? It's Labor Day, we don't have school.
America!
Joe, America. Okay? We will not finish that song, okay? So, you guys can feel free to listen to music here for this last 9 minutes of work time, okay, if you want. You can feel free to listen to music. But I want you guys to work, okay? So unless you're done with your worksheet, I don't want to see your worksheet not out. So unless you're done with your worksheet, I don't want to see it not out. I will give you one.
Thank you.
Yeah, if anyone else needs a worksheet, please let me know, and I'll help you out. I got the hookup.
Thank you.
Yep. Just remember, I asked that your phone is not a distraction to you.